So, some of you may notice a certain theme to pretty much everything I do. The name of my blog, the name of my YouTube channel, my username on everything. Centaurs. I am known online pretty much everywhere, ever since I've been online, as JeffCentaur. And you might wonder where that comes from. Maybe you don't care, but I'm here to fill some time, so I'm going to tell you anyway. And it starts a little embarrassing and then gets a little out of control, which honestly sounds like a description of my entire life. So when I was much younger, I was in love with a series called Xanth. You can look it up if you want to. That's the embarrassing part, is admitting how much of a fan I was of that series. Looking back, Xanth is an interesting series. It's a fantasy series. It's still running. There's something like 40 books in it now. And the first several books, because recently, very recently, out of curiosity, I went and reread the first book. And it's not really child-oriented. The author spends a lot of time thinking and looking about breasts and alluding to sex. There's not, intimate descriptions of sex, but sex is very much a part of the world. Which is weird because, like I said, I read the series as a kid, and I remember feeling like it was aimed at me. The series eventually, I have to assume, again, I've only reread the first one recently, and it's been at least a decade, probably more like 15 years since I've read one. I have to assume that eventually the book becomes more child-friendly, because I wasn't the only kid that read it. And I say kid, I'm thinking early teens. I was into it. And I'll also say this, the writing's not that great compared to what I read nowadays. I mean, there's some interesting concepts there, and it's not like the writer is awful. It's just clunky. It's not that, it's mediocre writing, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry if the author ever sees this, and I'm sorry if you're a big fan and you love it. My tastes have changed as I've grown older, is all it is. But this, back to the point, the series had centaurs in it. And this was also my very early days of the internet on a dial-up modem. And I wanted to find people to talk to on the internet, but I didn't know how. So I thought, why don't I find people who are fans of the things I'm fans of? So I found a Xanth email list. It was like a forum, but I guess before forums really existed. The idea was there was an email address, and you sent something to it, and it went out to everybody on the email list who could then respond to it or have their own messages, and there was a lot of back and forth. And one of the things you had to do on this email list was choose your Xanth name. Now, I like my name. My name's Jeff. I was named that twice. When I was born, my biological mother named me Jeff because she had never met an unattractive Jeff, and she figured that would ensure that I was attractive. I think we can tell that it worked. When I was adopted, at 2 years old, my parents had the option of changing my name. My father considered it. But my mother had had a dream. Ever since she was a little girl, she always wanted to name her son Jeff, based on some character on a TV show she had a crush on when she was younger. So had she been given the opportunity to change, or had she decided to change my name, she did have the opportunity, she would have changed it to Jeff. I like my name. I was named twice. And I thought about all the creatures of Xanth. Which would I most like to be? And I liked the centaurs. Big, strong, could run fast. Yeah. So I became JeffCentaur, which kind of breaks the rule naming of Xanth, where all the centaurs have names that start with C. But there was one exception. There was Herman the Hermit Centaur. So I figured if there was one exception, there could be two. And I was JeffCentaur. And long after I stopped being a part of the Xanth mailing list, I kept the name. Part of it's just my desire to be linked to myself, you know? I like putting my names on things. I like taking ownership of what I do. So my entire history online can all be traced to that name. That's me, anyway. And as luck would have it, I'm the only one on the internet. I've never needed to add numbers or anything. So it's me. The Centaur thing kind of got out of control, though. At first, it was a joke. Just, you know, let me get Centaur-related things. Let me grab something for you. I'll be right back. I've got a Centaur for you here. He's a little dusty. He just kind of sits on a shelf. I think this is an action figure based off of Hercules, the TV show. I think. My young teen years, I saw it in the store and I went, hey, Centaur! I like centaurs! So bought it. Then this happened. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see that, but it is an etched centaur because it's Sagittarius. And I will say this. It took me a lot longer to connect the dots than it should have. But I am a Sagittarius. And it wasn't until after I'd been into the Centaur for several years that I connected to the two. Let me get something else. You may recognize this little fella. Right? That's Winnie the Pooh. Correct? That's Winnie the Pooh as a centaur. This was a gift from my mother. Because after you own a couple of centaur-related things, you find you start owning a lot more of them. I was now collecting centaurs. My class ring had a centaur on it, up on my wall, which you're not going to be able to see, but it's over there, you can trust me. My best friend, Princess, did needlepoint of constellations, and since one of them was Sagittarius, she gave it to me. This necklace that I always wear was a gift from somebody, and I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but it is also a centaur. If I put it any closer than that, I'm going to have to choke myself to death, which, you know, would probably get a lot of views, but let's not. I consider myself fortunate to a degree because centaurs are not all that common. Like, if I had had a fascination with squirrels, like my mother did when I was a kid, I would be inundated with squirrel stuff, right? Or if I was Gallagher, I would just own watermelon everything. Luckily, centaurs are not that common. Now, the Sagittarius thing makes them a little more common, but friends and family now associate me as the centaur guy. And so I get any centaur-related things that they come across. And I don't mind, actually. Because it could certainly be a lot worse. And they certainly are a majestic creature. And in case you're wondering why Winnie the Pooh is a centaur, it's the whole Sagittarius thing. Yeah. So, that's all. I just thought I might explain. Oh, yeah, so when I got into college, I might as well explain. When I got into college and I started doing film work, you have to tag your stuff with a production company, right? I mean, you have to. And so we had Centaur Productions, because it means I didn't have to think of a name. I like Centaurs. Centaur Productions. Plus, then it gives my screen name a little bit of legitimacy, right? It's like, oh, he's JeffCentaur because he works for, or he created Centaur Productions. We found out, my friend Gary and I found out after a couple of years that there had been a Centaur Productions. They made gay porn. So we had to change that. So we thought for a while, how are we going to change it? 7 Centaurs Productions? And we did ultimately settle on Mad Centaur Productions. Not Mad as in, but Mad as in, woo! Right? Because let's face it, I'm a little woo! So, yeah. It continues to this day, and I have a feeling it's going to follow me for the rest of my life, all because I really enjoyed a mediocre fantasy series as a kid. Life's funny that way.